simplicity of Western Christianity. Let's think critically. Good evening to my sisters and my brothers in Christ and creation. Welcome to our masterclass here on Wednesdays. I want to thank you for joining us tonight and making us a part of your evening. And I just want to remind you, as we do each time that we're on the air or whatever we're doing, of our theme this year, which is to resist, recover, and recalibrate. We also ask when you come on that you would at least take the opportunity to like and share our Bible study with your friends, with your family, members of our church. And of course, you can always have a watch party. You can start that with Facebook and go to YouTube and be a part of us. Good evening, Elder Jackie, and we pray that all of you have had at least a good day today. And so we just ask that you would just like and share on YouTube, particularly because we know YouTube is a little bit more reliable than our good friends at Facebook. So take the opportunity to do that, if you will. And also just a few things by way of announcements and just to let the family know and everybody know what's going on. We're also in this month of March, and this is Women's History Month, and a lot of women have made major contributions, not only to this country but to the world, and so we need to make sure that we recognize them, even people that we think are unsung, our mothers, grandparents, and aunts. Good to see you, Patience, and my son Asante as well. Good to see all of you. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to like and share, let somebody else know that we're on. And also, this is National Nutrition Month. So this is the opportunity for us to learn about some of the things that we eat. And the theme this year is Beyond the Table. And so what that is kind of trying to help us all to understand is about the farmers, how food is farmed, how it's packaged, even the pesticides that are used, the things that are put in our food. It's good that we know. And then it also helps you to make decisions about what you buy, if it's going to be good for you, healthy for you and your family. It's also just good to know the people that are involved in bringing that food to your table. I mean, we go to the grocery store and get it. Sometimes we may go to a farmer's market, but for the most part, I'm a city boy, so I know very little about farming, and had to do hardly any, if any, growing up, because we didn't grow on a farm. We grew in a city, and so a lot of times we're just unaware of what it takes to get that food that you're eating, that you enjoy, onto your table. So it's a good opportunity. Also, National Kidney Month. And save your vision. Get your eyes checked at least once a year. Everyone, whether you're a younger person or an older person, but particularly if you're older, you need to make sure that you're doing these kind of things for yourself. Good evening, Deacon Charlie, as well. And so, and also, as a way of our community has just dealing with things, and we want to mention Miss Brenda Perry, who we lost on Monday. She's a really good member of our church, and we're praying for her two daughters and Dirac and all those persons who are associated with her, friends, especially Miss Edith. They were really good friends, and I just want to give a shout out to both of them because they made it easier for me and our church to make an entree into Benning Terrace. They kind of opened that door for us and let people know that we were okay, that I was okay. And she's going to be sorely missed. She was a wonderful person, wonderful member. And we wanted to keep Indira, I think, which is Faith's friend who's in the hospital. We want to keep her in our prayers. And we thank God for Patience, my sister, who's seem to be recovering really well from hip surgery, and to continue to pray for other people on our prayer list, like the Calamir's family, my Uncle Sonny, and others. So anyway, we're going to get into it tonight, and and what we're going to do tonight may be a little different from what you've been accustomed to hearing from this text that we're going to read. Just going back to the text that we read some of last week, but tonight, and I want to just set it up for you. We're not going to talk as much about Elijah. I kind of want to go back and examine Jezebel for a moment and talk about her. And so, if you have your Bibles, it's First Kings, she'll be on the screen there for you. First Kings chapter 19, and we're just going to focus in on verses 1 through 3. And remember, this theme for this Bible study is Rise. It's in your hands, and it's a theme that I'm just. It's about self-awareness. It's about self-determination. It's about your agency, which is understanding, who you are, and also whose you are, and understanding the genius, the capability that you have within yourself, and not put limits on yourself. I mean, sometimes you have to stretch in order to find out, what your capacity is. And sometimes once you get to a place where you think you can't go anymore, a lot of times there's still more you probably can get out of yourself with rest, with meditation, with prayer, with focus. But, it's like anything else. If you are working towards a goal, it doesn't always just come easy. You have to stay, in tune. You have to set goals, reset goals. Sometimes there are ups and then downs. But when this theme is, I really think it's I know it's for me, it's because a lot of times, and I hope it's for you, that God is with us, but we also have a responsibility to do some things for ourselves and for each other. So read this first 3 verses of First Kings if you haven't. I'm reading from the New Living Translation of the Bible. And you all know I'm a teacher at heart, so there are many translations. This is just one, and there's several, and some are better than others. And so, you can get them all now. You don't have to necessarily go buy all the Bibles. You can get all of these translations online. And so it says, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done. Think about that. So Elijah tells Jezebel, Ahab tells Jezebel everything Elijah the prophet has done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel, her name is mentioned again twice, sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me by this time tomorrow. I have not, it should have said, if I have not killed you as you killed them. And then verse 3, Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, town in Judah, and he left his servant there. And that's a really, really telling text because there's a lot of things that are happening in this text that hopefully we will cover tonight. And we will look at particularly Jezebel in terms of even how, she's treated and how we've been sort of taught to think about her in mostly negative ways. So I'll read this one more time. And it says, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel. There's no mention that Jezebel is a queen. It just says her name, Jezebel. So that's an interesting piece right there. It doesn't even afford her the kind of credit she deserves as a queen. He told Queen Jezebel, everything Elijah had done, including the way he killed all the prophets of Baal. So Queen Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the God strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you, just as you killed them. Boy, and that's a real it's a real challenging thing there. And so Elijah was afraid. He got out of there. He he got out of Dodge because he was afraid. But I want to talk about Jezebel because one of the things that I've been thinking about, particularly as I read this text, is I wanted to look at Jezebel, Queen Jezebel, because she was a queen. Her husband Ahab was a king. And I want to look at her from a different perspective. I'm not sure, have you ever thought about her from a different perspective? I'm not talking about her gods, and I'm not talking about how she worshipped. I'm not here to demonize her or any of those kind of things, but I am here to really look at her and why we have come up with such negative connotations about her. And so sometimes we have to look at scripture and look at life from different perspectives so that we can learn and have ways to engage people. And that's partly what's wrong, I think, in my perspective, with our country, is that we're unable to have conversations to see or to understand different perspectives, even if those perspectives are just really outlandish. Because sometimes when people actually really think about what they are saying and what they're embracing, if they're really trying to think, sometimes they come to different conclusions. Not all the time, but sometimes. So Nayshaw Jr., in her article, Jezebel Isn't Who You Think She Is, in Dame Magazine, around 2019, she stated Ahab and Jezebel are remembered as the evil duo. But Jezebel alone has become infamously a villainous woman. Biblical Jezebel is a royal badass who got things done. I love that. And by the name Jezebel has become, but the name Jezebel has become shorthand for tarted up, loose woman. So the question though is, how does Jezebel go from being a princess, a queen, to a prostitute? Because there's nothing in the text that suggests she was this kind of loose woman or a prostitute. But when people use the term Jezebel, they use it in terms that I will talk about later on that are not very kind. So like many powerful women, think about this, and this is Women's History Month. Like many powerful women, Jezebel has a bad reputation, but she deserves another look. I park your parenthetically just for a moment. If you remember when President Obama's wife was in office, the way people talked about her, the way people referred to her, the way Michelle, in their eyes, was too aggressive, they said, too forthcoming. Here is a strong, competent, intelligent, vivacious, beautiful black woman, Michelle, but people wanted to categorize her in negative ways because she was different. Maybe because she was dark skinned. Who knows? And she was confident. And I wonder sometimes why in our society, and it's not just men, but people in general are intimidated by confident women. I'm not talking about some woman who has to sort of She wants to show that she's intelligent, or she wants to prove to people that, but just by her sheer presence, who she is, the way she carries herself, the way she enters a room, the way she handles conversation. But we have real issues with that as a society. And yes, men likewise. But I think she just deserves just another look. This Jezebel, according to biblical text, Jezebel was a Phoenician princess who married Ahab, a foreign king who presided over northern kingdom of Israel in the 9th century, and helped him rule. And we don't talk about it, but she was helping him to rule, so they could be seen as co-partners, if you will, or partners in his kingship. She was front and center. He is depicted, though, as Ahab, as a terrible ruler who is disloyal to the Israelite God by promoting the god Baal and the goddess Asherah. Jezebel is portrayed or perceived or pictured as an evil foreign woman who leads Ahab astray by encouraging his worship of other gods. The name Jezebel is often used as a pejorative term to describe women today as beguiling, scandalous, malicious, vicious, spiteful, wicked, and cruel and evil, just to name a few. Because when somebody calls a woman a Jezebel, you know that's not a flattering name or term to use when you attach that to a woman's character. I think it shouldn't be, but that's the way it has evolved. So how does this badass woman go from being a princess to a prostitute, a loose woman? Does she really deserve this bad reputation? Well, let's just examine Jezebel from another perspective just for a moment tonight. Just for us to think, because when you're thinking about rises in your hands, this lady really gives us a model, a prototype of someone who's rising to the occasion and taking a situation into her hands. Whether, I have been taught in Sunday school classes and Bible studies, no, she's not a good woman. But you got to look at what she does and what she's able to accomplish. And why is she categorized in such a negative and pejorative way? Well, Jezebel can be viewed as a powerful, determined woman who is King Ahab's trusted advisor. Unlike many other biblical women who are unnamed and uninvolved in public affairs, this woman, Jezebel, has a track record of decisive action. For example, after Ahab complains that the prophet Elijah has humiliated him by slaughtering hundreds of his prophets, this woman Jezebel, she sends Elijah a letter, if you will, by a messenger, and she swears, "I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take you out." And then, of course, when they have another instance where he is crying on her shoulders, and he wants a vineyard that the owner refuses to trade or sell, Jezebel reassures him, "Hey, I'm going to get it. I'll get it for you." She writes a letter in his name and devises a plan to set up and kill the vineyard owner. Now, this may not be right, and I'm not suggesting that it is, but you have to agree that, it takes some guts to do what this woman was doing. It takes some tenacity. And it seems like her husband, the more I read about King Ahab, that he doesn't seem to have what it takes to do certain things. It's like she is a can-do woman. And the plan succeeds. Ahab gets the vineyard. Jezebel, of course, she can be seen as cold-blooded and cunning, and even a murderer. But so are other biblical monarchs and characters, like David, who had Uriah killed because he had slept with Bathsheba, his wife, and then brought Uriah back from the front lines in the war, and tried to get Uriah to sleep with his wife, so then when she conceived the baby, he could say it was his. But Uriah, because when you were in war, in times of war, the military men were basically, one of their vows or one of the things they would do, that they would not have any sexual relations while they were in war. So Uriah, he gave him wine. He didn't go in there with his wife. He slept outside. So then David devised a plan to have him sent straight up to the front line so he would be killed, be murdered, so he can continue his relationship with Bathsheba. And many believe out of that relationship came Solomon. Solomon in the line of Jesus. Can you imagine that? Solomon, the little baby. The little baby that came out of this crazy relationship of David and another man's wife named Bathsheba. So here, King David, but here, this woman Jezebel, this is an old story. We know this is what women are often challenged with regarding being treated differently than men, negatively, for traits that are often applauded in a man. We know that when women exert themselves, particularly black women, they're often, say they're loud, they're aggressive, all of these negative names. But when men do it, it's fine, it's great. Even the behavior, and some men won't be honest, but this put it all on the table. Men would maybe have several different relationships with women even while they are married, and consider that fine, well and good. But if their wife was stepping out, then they would have a serious problem, and they would come up with all kinds of justification for why their behavior should be considered normative and fine, and why their wife's behavior, if it was mimicking theirs, would not be fine. Matter of fact, we would applaud the man for what he's doing, and we would call the woman many names, whore and prostitute and loose and all kinds of names. But then the man, we champion some of the stuff that he may be doing, like in the case of David and some of the other characters in our Bible. I found it interesting, though, that the biblical text that does not refer to Jezebel as a queen. That kind of rocked me. I'm like, she's a queen. But it doesn't refer, it just uses her name Jezebel. And as I said, she is more notable than a lot of the women in the Bible. Because some of the women in the Bible, they don't even give them a name. You don't know who they are. They just say woman, or this woman, or this concubine. But it doesn't even give the woman the dignity of giving her a name. And so she's a queen, though. Here's a woman who is acting on the behalf of King Ahab, King Ahab seems to be inept or powerless to act for himself, but she's acting. Her power is evident after King Ahab's death, because the next king wants to kill her as a way to establish his power. After Ahab's death, there's a powerful struggle for the throne. His son Joram rules Israel, but a military general named Jehu is anointed king by a prophet of God. When Joram meets Jehu, he inquires whether there will be peace between them. And this is what Jehu said. He asked this question: what peace can there be so long as the many whoredom and sorcerers of Mother Jezebel continues? Perhaps that's how she got this reputation, because this particular statement was made. What peace can there be so long as the many whoredom and sorcerers of Mother Jezebel continue? See, negative and untruthful narratives are often embraced as truth without investigation. It's interesting, today we had a meeting. It was a group of us who want the council, the DC council, to put in a resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine and Israel, because there have been over 30,000 people who've died, the children, women, and right now they're starving There are kids who are starving. They're being starved out on purpose. This is genocide. And, and the chairman Mendelsohn, he was basically squirming because he said this is controversial. And I'm like, but the crime bill you signed at the council signed yesterday is controversial, but you still signed it. And it's very interesting. He said, "Oh, that's a foreign matter, but we are the capital of the United States, and this is the kind of cowardice that we have right here in our own city, and we're not asking for." An incredible thing, or we're just asking for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid to go to people who need it, and they'll be allowed to do it. Because what happens when there's a ceasefire, then it gives both sides an opportunity to really talk about how the war, the genocide, can end. Not necessarily going into the weeds and pointing fingers, but say, hey, enough is enough. How can we come to a peaceful resolution? Simple. But anyway, although none of Jezebel's ruthless actions suggest sexual immorality, but this is one of those things that somehow gets stuck to her. The insult casts Jezebel's religious practices in the sexual term when you say, what peace can there be so long as the many whoredoms and sorcerers of your mother Jezebel continue? I mean, in we read nowhere that Jezebel is a prostitute, is a loose woman, and she's a queen, woman of dignity. But all throughout history, even in our modern times, she is viewed, or when people use the term Jezebel, it is if this woman was running around running a brothel. The biblical text, the worship of non-Israelite gods, is often framed as deviant sexual relationship. Jezebel's devotion to Baal is no exception. Now, I'm a Christian. Our church is a Christian church. And we believe in God, the only God, one God. But it's not the God of the Baptists. It's not the God of the Pentecostals or the Catholics or the Jews. It's God. We just happen to approach our understanding and our faith trajectory from a Christian perspective. And more importantly, from what Jesus was teaching. Not so much what Paul was teaching. And then we also have to critique what's in the Old Testament. But we are Christians. We are Christ followers. That's what we are. But we also got to be careful, even as Christians, that we don't demonize other people who may not be of the same faith tradition. That's called proselytizing. That's calling what people, some Christian people, well, if you're not doing it this way, you're going to hell. I do not believe that. I don't think God is about that. No one religion, I don't care who they are, can put a claim to God that God is not a Christian, folks. God is not even Muslim. He's not Jewish. God is God. The way we approach God is through our various ways. We as Christians is through Jesus. It's through the Holy Spirit. Other people use and call God by various names. And it's unfortunate that in biblical texts, the worship of non-Israelite gods is often framed as a deviant sexual relationship. And Jezebel's devotion to Baal is no exception. Now, as I try to finish and close this up, Naisha Jr. also states in that article that connections between Jezebel and female promiscuity and prostitution continue in our contemporary era. And I said that earlier. In Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and that's a really crazy series. I did watch it, and it's really crazy. Handmaid's Tale. The brothel is named Jezebel's. Then there's a song called Jezebel by Sade Abdul, and it's about a clear-eyed sex worker who's unashamed of her profession. Furthermore, as detailed by sociologist Patricia Hill Collins and other black women, are frequently stereotyped as sexually promiscuous Jezebels. And we know that has been a label that stuck on black women, even though our black ancestors were being raped by their white slave owners for years. Thomas Jefferson was married to Mary Hemsley, or had a relationship when she was 14 to 15 years old. I don't know what you call that, but it can't be a loving relationship because she was a slave. She had no say-so in whether she was going to be with Thomas Jefferson or not. Since the European enslavement of African peoples began, myths surrounding enslaved African women as out of control and hypersexual served to justify their sexual abuse. And we know this is a lie. This is a lie from the pits of hell. If anybody is sexual deviant, hypersexual, it was the men who were raping our ancestors, not the women. How you gonna be hypersexual and you're being raped? But you have to call them hypersexual in order to justify you taking control of their bodies, taking their kids and sending them to other plantations. In Jezebel's unhinged Losing the Black Feminine Body in Religion and Culture by Tamara Lomax, and I know she's a wonderful, wonderful lady. She writes, from Black Venus to Jezebel sluts to ain't loyal hoes, Black women are miswritten into religious and cultural history as sites of ultimate human and sexual deviation. So that's why I want us tonight to just see Jezebel not as this pejorative character, these terms that we've come up with, but to see her as a woman of strength and courage, even though we could go and say, well, she was on the wrong side of history, all that kind of stuff. But just take this woman for what she was doing and what her character was about, not what we want to project on to her. And maybe there's more about her we don't know, because that would be what extra biblical material, because we don't have a lot. But there I say this as in closing, there far too many of our women have been mischaracterized, have been unjustly demonized and defined in ways that are negative. And what I pick up from Jezebel, and I think so many courageous women, is their willingness to rise and take things into their own hands. And I pray that women of God, women who love their families, women and men alike who love the communities that we are part of, that we will have the courage of a Jezebel, that we will have the tenacity and the willingness to make things to right, in a sense, to do something about it. And one thing she did, she may have been against Elijah, but she was willing to do whatever needed to be done to help her people, to help her husband. And we may say she may have been she may have been doing it from the perspective, as we mostly read, from the other perspective, or the perspective we disagree with. But you can't disagree with her tenacity. You can't disagree with her ingenuity. You can't disagree with her heart. And those are the lessons that we can get from Jezebel. Not all the negativity, not all the false sexuality, promiscuity that's really not hers, that's put upon her, but the kind of woman and the kind of people who will stand up when need to stand up. And that's all I want to share tonight with you. Just, sometimes look at things differently, examine what you can learn. And as my father had a saying, he said, you gotta learn how to eat the meat and throw the bones away. I understand. And so sometimes we have to learn how to eat the meat and throw that which is not useful away. And we can learn something from anybody. It doesn't mean that we mimic all of their behavior, but there are things that we can learn from anybody. All right. So thank you. Listen, some of you, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Maybe you have something you want to share in terms of giving to our church so that we can, we can continue the ministry. We continue. I also will let you all know when the homegoing service will be for our dear sister, Miss Brenda Perry. I know there will be something on this coming Friday up at the community center. So you are welcome to it. If you go on our social media, you can definitely see that there. I think Elder Jackie has posted it, and I have a copy of it. So you can, go and pay your respects there. But her service has not been announced yet. This is just something that the community is doing. And it will be at the community room at 4450 G Street. And it's Friday at 5 p.m. So if you're able to go by there, then certainly do that. But listen, if you give something, you give through Givelify, you can give through Cash App, any way you want to share, and take the opportunity to just be grateful. Be grateful today. Be thankful that you're alive, and God is still taking care of us. That God is still alive, no matter what people think. There is an entity we call God. You can call it energy or any other name. That is supreme. But God is not a God who's over us or under us. God is with us. So listen, I want to say a quick prayer and a good evening. God, I pray that something you said and shared tonight will help us all to realize that times in this life we have to rise because it's in our hands. And when we've done all that we can do, we've got to that limit, then God, we know that's when you will step in. When things that we cannot do, that only you can do. But there's so much that we can do before we get to that point. So God, thank you for granting us the power that's within us, power that's greater than any enemy that's within the world. This is my prayer. In Yeshua's name, we call Jesus. Look, good evening to all of you, and have a wonderful and blessed evening. Hopefully we'll see you on Sunday at 9 a.m. or 11:30. God bless. Simplicity of Western Christianity. Let's think critically.